Suzie Hunter, multimedia journalist. It's really cool to chat with you. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. So I've been looking forward to chatting with you because I'll just kind of get right into it. You went on what I would consider the ideal summer trip last year, touring every ballpark across Major League Baseball, but also raising money for Boys and Girls Club in the process. So that's a really cool, I guess, cherry on top of that Sunday that you were able to kind of incorporate it for a really good cause. But I'm just really curious, how did the whole idea come about?
You know, um, this was definitely, of course, this is every baseball fan's lifelong dream to not only go to every park, but to do it all in one season. And I was, sitting in my, apartment in Hartford, the year 2020, it was the summer, baseball wasn't back yet. And I was sitting there
Yeah.
thinking, wow, if baseball is back next year in a capacity where like fans can actually go to games, that's the year that I have to do the trip. And then I kind of like, waited, felt it out. And when I realized that it was possible, I mapped out the whole trip, like all in one night. It took me like 7 hours. It's like a full work day just to map out a,
Yeah.
a road trip like this. But when I realized that I could actually do it, I was like, well, I have to. It'd be crazy not to.
Yeah, that's like bucket list type of stuff right there. So basically you were just talking about like the whole kind of setting that up at 7 hours in one day. So was it kind of like free reign, or was it kind of like stressful logistically trying to make it all work as you were, I guess, traveling all over the US and, just trying to make all that kind of happen?
No matter how much you plan, there's always going to be really stressful moments, especially when you're just a woman by yourself on the road, things go wrong. You definitely get a little nervous too in some situations. For the most part, it was great, but there are definitely times that are super stressful where you're like, oh, I don't know where I'm staying tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, and you, like you just said, you went by yourself the entire trip, right? Like you didn't travel with anybody at any point?
So yeah, I drove the whole thing myself. My mom did tag along for a couple of ballparks, but other than that, like I was just on the road by myself for like 5 months, which is also weird in itself. I felt like very truck driver esque.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I can imagine, like, the gas. I know you had a, Patreon to help kinda support, like, the costs, like hotel and gas and food and all of that. You had, stepped away from your current, your role at the time, right, to make it happen?
Correct. Yeah. So, I had signed a contract at my previous station, and then when that contract was up, I chose to not re-sign it because, well, for one thing, I thought it'd be so cool to do this trip, but also I was so burnt out, especially like reporting like a whole year through a pandemic. It was a brutal time for everyone, but I especially had a very rough time working through the pandemic for sure. So when I saw an opportunity to take a break, I was like, this will be really good for my mental health. So I had to do that too for myself.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, like, did you have were there any like rainouts or anything that kind of delayed the trip in terms of like you were going to go to one city for instance and then maybe a rainout or something kept you maybe from getting to that specific game, or was it kind of smooth in that sense?
You know what? For the most part, it was a pretty smooth trip. I'd given myself like ranges of dates. Like I wasn't like, okay, I can only go to this game on this one day. Like I gave myself a little bit of wiggle room at every ballpark, and not just with weather, but with COVID too. Like anything can change at any given time. A game could get,
Yeah.
postponed due to illness. So I made sure it was so important for me to like have that wiggle room. I didn't have a lot of rainouts though. I did have one rain out in New York, and it
Mm,
actually led to the best baseball day of my life. So I was in New York, and both the Mets and Yankees were in town, and they both were supposed to play on a Wednesday night. Both games got rained out. So the next day, the Mets had an earlier doubleheader, the Yankees had a later doubleheader, so it was possible to go to 4 games in one day. And I'm like, okay, well, this will never happen to me again. This is absolutely insane. It was just like a full day of being at ballparks, and it was absolutely spectacular. And also, New York fans are nuts, especially when they've been drinking all day. So it was absolutely so entertaining. So like that was a rain out. I had a rain out in DC. The
okay.
game got moved to the next day, and it was still raining, but they had to play it. So I think there were like, I swear, there were like 100 people at that game. But other than that, no rainouts, which was kind of crazy. The trip went surprisingly smoothly.
That's awesome though that even though you were supposed to go to, like, maybe that Met or Yankee game, that you got to do the doubleheader and see both of those because that's a unique experience in itself, being able to do not
Mhm.
just one, but both of them. So that's pretty cool. What was maybe your favorite ballpark or city or even, like, ballpark food that maybe you tried or maybe weren't aware of? Or yeah, what kinda stuck out for you?
Yeah, well, this was definitely in terms of ballpark food, this was not the most exciting year because these concession stands, these concession companies, the priority wasn't like, "Oh, we need to bring back all of our over the top foods." It was more like, "We need to serve things safely." So,
Yeah.
this wasn't the year for like all of the best over the top foods, but I did have one unique slash controversial item, the Grasshoppers in Seattle, which
Oh,
also
yeah.
was one of my favorite parks, but I knew I had to try the Grasshoppers. I was so happy that they had them still, um, and they were fantastic. And people thought it was disgusting, but it's like such a hidden gem at that park.
Yeah, I think I would try it. I mean, it's healthy, right? Isn't it, like, good for you? It's like the protein, right? So,
Yeah, it's protein. It's like a low calorie snack. It just tastes like it's seasoning. Like it's kind of just like eating like a popcorn kind of situation.
yeah.
It's good. Like I actually enjoyed it. Would eat it again.
How many of the ballparks had you already been to, or was it I mean, I'm assuming most of you had not been to yet?
Most of them not. I think I'd been to like 9 or 10. I think it was like 10 that I'd been to before this trip. So yeah, it was like after a certain point, like once I left the Northeast, I was like, okay, pretty much almost every team here is new to me right now. So
Yeah.
that was really cool. Yeah, I knew I needed to check a lot of them off my bucket list. So getting it all done in one summer, fantastic.
And I know there was, like, what, 6 no-hitters last year? You didn't happen to catch one, did you?
No, I saw no hitters. That
Yeah.
is insane to me. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't catch a single no hitter. I did see some other unique things though. I saw Brian Hayes hit a home run and then not touch first base. So that was pretty unique, but pretty frustrating because he was on my fantasy team. Um, Fremil Reyes hit an out of the park home run as I was walking into the ballpark late, and I got video of the guy who caught the home run outside of the park. That was really cool to see.
Nice.
So I saw some cool stuff for sure, but not a single no hitter, and it's so frustrating to me.
Were there any, like, specific milestones that you may have seen that a player or something like that may have happened?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I saw any milestones. No, there were no. I didn't see any milestones like that. Just like a couple of random funny things that I mentioned. But like I was in Cleveland though, like right after they announced the name change, so that was
Mhm.
like pretty cool timing too because I got to talk to fans there about like what they thought of the change. I liked Cleveland a lot too, so
Yeah.
I'm excited that they get to kind of have a fresh start with this new brand.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning before, you were doing it for charity. So, how did you, I guess, pick that specific charity, or kind of like, how did that kind of come about for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I love the Boys and Girls Clubs. I've worked with them a lot. When I was a reporter, I did a lot of stories with them. I've done volunteer work and fundraisers for them. So when I was about to embark on this journey, I knew I wanted a charitable component to it. And I thought, well,
Yeah.
what better than something that is so heavily invested in youth sports and does so much to further the game of baseball with kids these days. So and on top of everything else they do too, which is also so important. So it was just really a no-brainer. I had such a great time working with them.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's really cool that you're able to do that. And even though the trip's obviously done, people can still donate, right, or kind of support that cause.
Yeah, absolutely. The GoFundMe is still up. All the links are on my social media. I had set a pretty big goal and didn't really get to it, so that's why it's still up. And I keep meaning to figure out like maybe ways that I can push myself a little closer to the goal. Like I have a lot of like random souvenirs that like maybe I'll start auctioning off. So that's the thing I need to definitely work on. But yeah, fundraiser is still up. I would love if anyone listening donated to it because it's a great cause.
What was the reception, I guess, of it like? Did it pick up steam among fans or even media as it was going on, or was it kind of steady from start to finish?
So it got when I first announced it, I was like a couple of ballparks in when I finally announced it and launched the fundraiser, but immediately so many people reached out and wanted to have me on their podcast and I
Yeah.
did some TV interviews and it was just people seemed really excited about it. I shared a TikTok that like went a little viral, so that was really cool. So people were very into it for sure, and I was really grateful. It was a very supportive reaction.
Yeah, I definitely remember following along a little bit on like on Instagram or Twitter. So it was really cool, of course, to like see that. And I don't know, I don't remember specifically, but I just remember I think you were like probably like in middle of the not middle of the nowhere US, but just so like driving somewhere. Like I could just imagine like kind of like how terrifying it might be driving in different cities or spots that you're not really familiar with. Or I mean, I guess you didn't have like any car troubles, right?
I didn't have car trouble. My car's pretty reliable. I'm
Yeah.
not reliable though. I lost my car keys, and this caused me to like miss a game that I wanted to go to. But this is why we have the wiggle room, the little range of dates.
Yeah.
So I was heading to Milwaukee. It was already so chaotic. For some reason, like hotels in Milwaukee that whole weekend were like $500 a night for like basic like Marriott's that really should only be like about 100 something. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, what is happening? Like, why is it so? I still have no idea what was going on in Milwaukee. I'm like, it cannot just be this game. Um, already I was like, I don't know where I'm staying. And I was driving through, I think I was driving from Cincinnati. So I was like in Indianapolis, stopping to take like a lunch and restroom break. And then I realized I can't find my keys. I have one of those push to start cars, like a lot of cars
Mm,
do now, but I could not find my keys. So I'm like, well, I can't leave my car unlocked with the key in it because all of my stuff is in here. So I don't really, I just like, I was stuck in my car for like 2 hours, searching like crazy, did not know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to lose my freaking mind. And then
yeah.
somehow I found it and it was in like my trash bag, like the bag of trash that I keep in my car. I was like, I don't know how this landed in here. This is so annoying. I just wasted so much time. I was like, it was awful. So that was like the closest thing to car trouble I had, but it was just really me trouble.
Were you also at the All-Star game in Colorado?
Oh heck yes.
Yeah.
I love the Rockies and I've been to Coors Field a lot, but it was an absolute priority to schedule this trip around making it to the All-Star game. And then I
Yeah.
wanted to stick around too, because I have a lot of friends in Denver, always have a good time there. So I wanted to stick around also for like a regular Rockies game. So yeah, I was there for all the All-Star stuff. I got to go to the home run derby.
Oh,
I went to
nice,
the
nice.
All-Star game. I'd never been to an All-Star anything before. So it was really fun.
Yeah, that's another thing I'd wanna do is check out, like, an All-Star game or something, but, how was the home run derby and All-Star I mean, it was in Denver, so the balls were just flying out. I remember watching it on TV, so what was it like being at the derby? Was it even better? I think it's always fun on TV, but was it even just that much more impressive in person?
Oh, it was lit. It was awesome. Yeah, the derby was probably more fun than the All-Star game too. It was
Yeah.
just it was great energy. It was oh my gosh, and it was just so much fun to watch. And I'm like, okay, I need to go to every single one of these for the rest of my life now.
Yeah, and I was curious too. I'm a Cubs fan, so were you at Wrigley before or after they basically sold off the team?
Both. Okay. So I had to go to Chicago a couple of times. So I was there before the fire sale and after. Because I had to come. So like, yeah, I went to see the Cubs first, and then I did like the rest of the Midwest, and then I had to come back to see the White Sox again. But I have like a lot of friends in Chicago too,
Mhm.
so like I knew I had places that I could stay for extended periods of time. So yeah, I was there before and after. Much different crowd sizes between
Yeah.
those two. Um, but yeah, it was definitely cool to watch this season evolve and like feel like I was a part of it.
That's yeah, definitely. And you kind of talked about the pandemic, and COVID, and all that. So, were there any specific challenges, even just with the traveling aspect of like with the COVID and trying to deal with all that? I mean, I can only imagine that would make it a little bit tougher or challenging anyway.
Yeah. So when I started the trip, it was May. So, at the beginning of the season, it was really cool to see how all the rules and stuff changed while I was on the road. Like things were much more strict when I started. I started in Philly, like where I'm originally from, and like the rules when I started the trip at Philly, like you couldn't buy a single ticket. You had to only buy pairs because they didn't want random people sitting with each other. So it was
Yeah,
annoying. 'Cause it's like, okay, like I had to buy 2 tickets to go to a game by myself because like no one in my family wanted to go because it was the day of my sister's rehearsal dinner, so no one wanted to touch that. I can't believe my sister didn't murder me, but so I had to do that, deal with that. Everyone was still wearing masks at the beginning of the trip.
yeah,
When I was in New York, there were sections that you had to be vaccinated to sit in, so I was like bringing my vaccination card. And then like gradually, all these regulations started to lift, and of course, like I mean, once I headed down south, it was like the pandemic never even happened.
yeah.
But then, so it just, most of the summer actually felt pretty normal, which was pretty crazy. Like, you there weren't, mask mandates if you were vaccinated. And I, of course, wanted to make sure I was fully vaccinated before I hit the road. That was a priority for me. Um, but yeah, then once I got to Washington, once I
Mhm.
got to Seattle, I was there the day that they like reinstated their mask mandate. So I was like, okay, I guess like, things were bad, things got better, things started getting bad again. So then like
Yeah.
pretty much the rest of my trip I was wearing a mask. So I was like, okay, it was just really weird to witness and experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so aside from the car keys and COVID, were there really I guess there really weren't any other challenges though. It kind of sounds like it was pretty like you said, it was kind of pretty smooth in general.
I mean, yeah. I mean, another big challenge though for sure is just like all of the driving. Like
Yeah.
my intention was to vlog the whole thing, and like I
Mhm.
did, but I had no time to edit. So like
Yeah.
I thought I was going to do all this stuff on the road. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be updating these vlogs every week. I'll do this. I'll do that. Like just the driving takes so much out of you, and I didn't expect that because I guess if you're driving like if most days of the week you're driving 8 hours a day.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, that's tiring. That's going to take a lot out of you. I did not expect that. Now I know what I can handle driving wise, but that was a challenge for sure that I wasn't expecting.
I totally get how tiring that would get after like day after day or I guess week after week in your case.
Oh yeah, like doing like 7 hour drives all week long, and then like you're doing it for 5 or 6 months. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, no wonder I'm freaking tired. Like this is a lot.
And then I guess you were able to find like hotels pretty easily throughout the entire summer. Like you didn't have any too much problems trying to. I mean, I know you were talking about the one in Milwaukee, but in general, it sounds like that all worked out pretty well.
Yeah, well, for Milwaukee, I ended up not even being able to stay in Milwaukee. I just straight up stayed in Chicago one
Mm,
night, and then I stayed in Kenosha, which was also like weirdly expensive for
mm.
like that town or that city, whatever it is. But so like, and that's still like, yeah, 45 minutes away, almost an hour away. So that was a big issue for sure. For the most part, I had pretty good luck. I mean, some cities were just like weirdly expensive, and I didn't know why. But then also, I had friends. I have friends all over the country, so in a lot of cities, I had friends that I could stay with. So that was always fun.
Yeah, definitely. And so, in general, looking back on it, was it like different than you expected, or was it pretty much more or less what you kind of expected? I guess before you embarked on that trip.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know what to expect going into this, but it was so much fun. It was the trip of a lifetime. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was absolutely incredible.
And so, I guess if you were to do it again, what would you do differently, or what advice would you have for someone trying to do something like this?
Oh my gosh, I don't really know what I would do differently. I guess my advice to anyone is, plan it out ahead of time. Pre-plan what you can, but then expect all of the unexpected and be ready to be flexible.
Yeah, definitely. So what's next? Like, do you have a 2022 project or trip in place, or not yet?
You know what? So my big priority now is writing a book about this summer
Nice.
that I just experienced. Just trip of a lifetime. Have to share everything that I experienced. And I did say I edited a bunch of vlogs, so I need to. I'm gonna put those out. Starting pretty soon. That's what I'm working on. That's the priority. So here we go.
Yeah, the book's a great idea. I didn't even think of that, but that's definitely a good idea. That'd be really cool to see. I have to check that out for sure. I guess I'll just ask you because I'm just curious. When do you think the lockout might end?
Oh, I don't know. I'm
I
so
know, right?
stressed about it though.
I hope it's before spring training, but I mean that's going to be here soon, so we'll see if they can
Spring
actually figure something
training's
out.
it's crazy soon. So I'm stressed, I'm nervous. I don't even want to think about it. I'm trying to be really positive, but it's like we just had, such a weird season in 2020, and I would hate to see baseball not come back when it's supposed to come back. We don't deserve this as fans.
I know. 2020 when it came back in late July after that entire mess, and now with the lockout, it's like I don't. Manfred doesn't inspire much confidence for myself in terms of thinking about what they might be able to do. So hopefully they surprise us, and we'll have spring training, or at least hopefully spring training won't be too delayed, and the season won't be delayed too much, if at all. But I don't know. Hopefully they figure it out soon.
They better get it together. I will not be happy if they don't.
Yeah, I know. I was curious too. Have you been to Cooperstown before?
I have not, and I can't believe it either because, like, I lived in New England for so long, not very far from Cooperstown. Never made it there. I'm super annoyed. My best friend and I have talked about going and like, making a weekend of it. So, one of these days I'll get there.
Yeah, now I wanna do, like, the All-Star game or the World Series or, like, a cross-country trip, I don't know, so
Hmm.
I think you did the hard one at least, knock that out, which is really cool, so now you can kinda do, like, a quick weekend at Cooperstown or something.
Exactly. I did make it to the Negro Leagues Museum, and
That's
that was
cool.
really cool. So at least I made it there. That's in Kansas City. Had such a really cool time there. Highly recommend going there as well.
Did you take, like, the L in Chicago or the subways in New York to get around at all, or was it mainly just walking and driving?
You know what? So I mean, if I were by myself, I would not know how to like use the subway or the L. Like, I didn't learn it when I was young. I didn't live in New York City when I was in my 20s. I lived in Boston where there's like three lines, like that's it. Like, but I have friends who live in those cities who are like, okay, you're gonna take this train, you're gonna take that train, or like they went physically with me to the game. So I
Yeah.
had guidance. So I did. Yes, I used public transportation in those cities, but heavily assisted. Yeah.
I don't think I asked this, maybe I did, but, just in case, was there a stadium that you liked the most or maybe didn't like? Not to put you on the spot, but, like, was there a stadium
Yeah.
that maybe didn't really live up to what you had expected?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned that I loved Seattle. I had a really great time
Yeah.
there. I loved Cleveland. Pittsburgh is so
Mhm.
underrated. I actually loved the new Globe Life, the new Rangers Stadium, which is like hideous on the outside, like a weird, ugly convention center.
Yeah.
But like inside, it's beautiful. So I liked that a lot more. I was not expecting to like that one, but I liked it a lot. It was one of my favorites. I was disappointed by Wrigley.
Oh, really? Yeah, I could
I
see that
was.
though.
So, like,
Yeah.
I used to work at a Fenway Sports Bar. My
Yeah.
grandfather grew up in Boston, so he was just like the biggest Red Sox fan. So, like, I have spent a lot of time at Fenway, and I like Fenway. There's some things I don't like about Fenway, but for the most part, I'm just like, this is a cool old ballpark, and always wanted to check out Wrigley too because they're of the same era. I got to Wrigley, I was like, oh my god, I can't see anything where I'm sitting. It's so cramped. It was
Yeah.
5 million degrees and 500% humidity. So it was a brutal game, like that first game that I went to. And I also don't like that you can't just like do a lap around the ballpark. Like I love to walk the whole concourse and just get a
Mhm.
sense of, the ballpark that I'm at. And that is not an option at Wrigley. And I was furious. Yeah, like I appreciate the history,
Yeah, yeah.
but like I don't know, that ballpark just upset me. And people are surprised. They're like, oh, Wrigley was one of your favorites, right? And I'm like, least favorite. Oh, among the least favorite. Yeah, but just for those reasons.
Yeah. Did you, do, I guess, mostly night games, or did you have any day games kinda sprinkle I guess you had some day games in there,
I
right?
had
Like
a bunch. Yeah,
doubleheaders.
I had a
Yeah,
bunch. I
yeah.
had a great mix. I mean, of course, a lot of night games, but I mean, some of those day games were brutal. Like, yeah, I did. Actually, all of the Cubs games that I went to were day games, so they were like horrible weather-wise,
Oh,
just like
yeah.
so hot out for some reason. It was like unseasonably hot both times I was in
It
Chicago.
seems like it,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I just did not. They wanted me to melt. Oh my gosh, and it when I was in Cincinnati, it was like super hot out. It was a day game too. But yeah, no, for the most part, yeah, a good mix.
And then I think Toronto was your last trip, if I'm not mistaken?
It was. So I didn't plan on going to Toronto when I first mapped out my trip because Canada wasn't open. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Blue Jays they were playing in Dunedin. Then they moved to Buffalo. I saw
Mhm.
them pretty early on in their run in Buffalo.
Okay.
So, that was like, I thought that was my Toronto experience. I thought that was where they were gonna play for the rest of the season. And then when Canada opened back up, I was like, okay, now I need to actually expedite my passport. And that was the only stadium I couldn't drive to because I think you're not allowed to, but also to get the expedited passport, you have to have a flight itinerary.
Mhm.
So I flew to that one last stadium. That was the only one I did not drive to.
That's really cool. I've never been to Canada either, so that's another neat thing I need to do, but, no, that sounds like a really awesome year in review, like, to think about, like, it's like, I feel lucky just having done the Cooperstown thing, but you got to do this entire, summer trip basically, and you didn't do any playoff games, did you?
No, I wanted to, but the teams where I would have had a place to stay, the timing didn't work out. So like at that point, I was like, okay, like I'm sick of hotels. Like I'll do this. I'll go to playoff games if I can like just stay with one of my friends for like that week. And that just, it didn't work out that way. So it's like, oh, well, I saw enough of everyone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're probably sick of hotels and driving and all that, even all these months after the fact.
I mean, it was so fun, but like, yeah, at that point, I was like, I would love to stay in one place for more than a week. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, this was really cool to chat with you and learn about and just hear about this entire summer. Thanks again. It was good to actually be able to chat with you and just connect with you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me on. It was so great to chat with you.